Good morning, everyone. Right, looks like we are live again for another one of the lockdown live shows, and everything's set up, good to go. We're doing this one on YouTube this morning because Facebook is so unstable with this. I'm not sure if it's the amount of traffic currently going in there from applications like Zoom, but anyway, right, here we are. This morning I'm going to be chatting with a good friend of mine called Warren Fleming. Warren is based out Sedgefield, Knysna way, and he is a good mate of mine. Warren is also listed as one of the Olympus ambassadors, and he's also a master of printing your stuff. Warren's done some work for me, and they had a little printing shop down in Knysna where they do a lot of guys' works, including our good friend Andrew Averley as well. And Warren's going to chat a little bit about printing your artwork, Olympus cameras, and just whatever comes up. So please hang around. We should have Warren coming in a couple of seconds. And then, yeah, looking forward. Please ask your questions if there's any. And this is going to be another cool one. All right. Just letting everybody on Facebook know as well that we are live. Warren should be on in a minute. Here we go. Good morning.
Hey, morning, Dewald. How are you?
All right, and you, man?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, sir.
Are you still kicking through this whole thing?
Yeah, getting through it, eh? Not too bad. I think for us guys that work from home, it's not too much of a difference other than going out and shooting. It's the home life is pretty much the same.
Yeah. So what's your first thing you're going to be doing when this all is over?
Sure. To be honest, I haven't thought about it. Obviously, try to get a few shoots done. I've got a few things lined up that I can't obviously get done now. Fortunately, got a bit of work in to keep me busy at the moment, which is nice. Not a lot of guys, especially in the photographic industry, are actually being able to work through this time. So it's quite nice.
But the big thing is we need to keep ourselves busy and keep our minds ticking, because most of us are creative people, and we need to be creative to just stay sane.
Yeah, no, completely. I agree. I've sat. One of the jobs I've had recently is to photograph a whole lot of stainless steel braai equipment and all of that. And without having access to a studio or anything, it's been quite a nice creative challenge to sort of get lighting and stuff done, outside using sheets, natural lights, reflectors, all of that thing. So it's been quite cool in the creative side of things.
Yeah. Right. And especially now that you've got time to do that kind of stuff, where you need to be able to spend some time to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like the sort of job that normally would take me maybe a day is taking me about 4 days. Where you can nitpick and get really technical and make sure everything's 100% on camera without having to sort of rely on any sort of tricks here or there in Photoshop with deep edging and all of that. So yeah, it's kept me busy. Yeah.
Okay, right. So how's things done in the garden route otherwise? Is it quiet? Generally a quiet time of the year anyway, but quieter than normal.
Yeah, definitely quieter than normal. I've been into town once or twice, and it's not dead. I mean, there are a few people here and there, but otherwise it's actually quite nice. It gives us a sense of getting our quiet town back in a way, which is really nice.
Okay. Okay.
And your
Cool.
side, how's things in the winelands?
Look, to be honest with you, at this stage, there's a lot of parts of Worcester which don't think that we are in lockdown. And we've talked about this, and we spoke to a friend of ours this morning who's also got a little small business, is the fact that the people that aren't complying to the rules are stuffing it up for everybody else. Because this thing won't be over in a week and a half's time. We're gonna be in this for the long run.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's it's for the long haul. It's for the best. I mean, obviously, it's going to affect a lot of us, but it has to be done. So we have to do what we have to do.
Yeah, I think the people that's going to survive coming out of this is the ones that got creative and innovative in keeping connection with everyone.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I look at like my father, for example, who lives around the corner. He's got a good life. I mean, he's basically retired now, and I check his goal for the day is to take a creative photo with his beer in his garden every day. And I think, I would love to have a life like that, But I mean, he's worked his way through the hardships like we have to now, to get to where he is. So
yeah.
I mean, that's the goal.
Just a bit of history. How long has your family been in the photographic industry in the garden route?
In the garden route, we moved from Johannesburg in 1996. So, I mean, 24 years, my dad's been a photographer in the region. Back in the day when he started in Knysna, he was one of the top photographers in the area. I mean, this is still going back to the days of analog and things. He came from a huge photographic background up in Johannesburg. So the family business sort of went for, around 20 years. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, can't remember exactly, I sort of went solo on my own, and so we've had a presence in this area for a long time in the photographic industry.
Okay, and what kind of photos did you guys do mainly?
Well, one of the biggest specialities that we do is architectural interior photography. We're very specialized in lighting and shooting proper portfolios of guest houses, big hotels, high-end properties for sale, working with architects. So that's probably one of the things we're more renowned for in the area. I mean, obviously we do a wide variety from commercial shoots to weddings to family portraits. We'll take the odds and ends here and there, but the architectural side has been probably the biggest, and then probably is one of the biggest namesakes is the connection with Olympus South Africa and Olympus Germany, which has sort of given us a lot of boost over the years as well.
Okay, tell us about that. How did you get involved with that, and why Olympus?
Okay, well, let's start off with my father. Back when digital photography sort of became a new thing. He had predominantly shot on Nikon most of his life. He had spent millions and millions with Nikon over the years, and basically when digital cameras came out, he was looking at what was the best option to go for. And he got hold of the guys from Olympus South Africa. It was a different import agency back then, and he asked to borrow some equipment. And he did quite a lot of research, and he saw there was quite an interesting future with their systems. So basically, he got started on Olympus from a very early age, in the digital era at least. So basically, when I came into the business, I was actually working as a chef at the time. Sort of got a lot burnt out. The hours were just killing me. So I went in to start learning photography to help my father out with his business. And Olympus was the brand he was using. So I started off using the brand. Got quite involved with it on the technical side. The sort of the knowledge from the importer side wasn't the greatest. So we used to give a lot of technical advice and, do workshops for the Olympus guys, and we sort of got in bed with them that way. And it's something that just grew and grew and grew over the years, to just being an ambassador, to being an international visionary in the past, just doing as much as we could with the brand, and it suited us quite well.
And how's the Olympus brand doing in terms of market share in South Africa at the moment?
In terms of the market share in this country, I don't know the exact figures, to be quite honest with you. The brand itself has grown quite considerably in the last few years, especially the last few releases of their top professional camera systems. It's grown quite rapidly. But I mean, if you look at other countries, like especially technological countries like Japan, I mean, in the mirrorless market, Olympus is on top in Japan, for example. So worldwide, they're going from strength to strength.
Okay, yeah, but I've shot with them, and it's a brilliant little camera. It really is a nice system to work with, and it's the only thing that's difficult is the menu, but otherwise, as soon as you figure that out, it's not that bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same. I mean, like if you work on Windows and you go to Apple, the menu is different. Or if you shoot on Olympus and you go to Nikon, the Nikon's menu is difficult. So for me, I find other manufacturers' menus difficult. So, it's chalk and cheese. But the newer systems, the menus have changed considerably since when we shot together with the Olympus. It is actually probably a little bit more technical now, but it gives you a lot more options.
Okay. Have you played with the new OMD, the Mark III one?
I briefly, a few weeks ago, I was in the Kalahari with Lars Johnson, one of the portrait and rock photographer visionaries for Olympus. Yeah, so we were out there for a couple of weeks. He had the new Mark III out there. I played with it briefly. At that stage, I was shooting with the EM1X, which is the sort of the bigger body with the integrated grip and everything. So the system is quite similar to the Mark III, a few improvements on the Mark III, but pretty impressive, I must be honest. Some of the sort of the features on the camera are absolutely phenomenal, especially for wildlife, sports, action photography. It's incredible.
The fast frame rates is amazing on that thing.
Yeah, very fast. I mean, up to 60 frames per second in RAW, never mind pre-shooting with the Pro Capture. I mean, you never miss any action. I actually caught the other day when you were talking to Andrew Averley, you were talking about the great white sharks breaching there in Mossel Bay that you sadly missed.
Yeah.
Some of the features like that with the fast frame rates. I mean, you get the action from before the white shark breaches out the water. You're getting it from before it even touches the surface of the water, the full action, everything. You never miss a shot. And with high frame rates like that at 60 frames per second, I mean, you can start turning it into sort of 8K video even at the end of the day.
Yeah. Oh, you can, if you put them in like a time lapse thing, you can create a nice little...
I mean, if it's at 60 frames per second, I mean, you're shooting at full resolution. I mean, that's 60 frames per second. Essentially, you can turn it into a video, and you can get some really incredible high quality stuff.
You can get a 2-second, 30-frame video clip.
Pretty much, yeah. Sometimes 2 seconds, like with a white shark breaching like that, 2 seconds is more than enough. The action's over in half a second. Yeah.
And also with what I want to say about that is that, especially with the white shark stuff, you could focus on the decoy being towed and just lock it into manual focus, and you literally just need to sit there and press the button.
Yeah, pretty much exactly that. I use it with a rear focus, so I mean that's pretty much just setting the focus point for the focus distance where you need it, and then the rest is done from there. But it's the same concept, and it's really fantastic. And with the stabilization as well, especially being on the boat, with the 5-axis stabilization where the sensor floats in a magnetic field, with any of the movements on the boat, it's just incredible. You can get it's so nice and smooth.
Yeah, especially if you want to shoot video of that as well. The video on the the video on the Olympus is really, really good. It's a very nice video system.
Yeah, I must be honest. On the two latest cameras, the EM1X and the EM1 Mark III, the new Cinema 4K with the 400 log feature gives you so much more dynamic range on your video. It's really incredible. I mean, obviously, it's a lot more time spent in post. Like if you're using Premiere or whatever you're using, it's time consuming afterwards. But the flexibility of the files it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
and also. Sorry?
Does the new ones have 4K 60 frames per second, or still?
Unfortunately, no. It's still down to 24.5 frames per second on 4K, which is a feature I'd like to see improved. Which possibly on the next camera they'll bring out a higher frame rate on 4K. That is the one downside I would say to the video, but the quality is, to me, at the end of the day, more important. If I want to shoot something with higher speed, I'll go down to a lower resolution with a higher frame rate, and I'll just have to live with it.
Yeah, it's like myself and Raymond spoke the other day, is South Africa and most of the world is not really geared up for 4K watching yet.
Yeah, no,
so,
completely. But even the
only thing with the 4K is you're future-proofing yourself for in case somebody needs that footage in 10 years' time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's nice to have it that it's available, but also for me on a processing level, even if I take 4K and I render it down to 1080 or something, I find the sharpness is a lot better than actually just shooting in full HD. So from that sort of perspective, you've got a little bit of a higher quality end result, even if downscaling from 4K.
Yeah, and you can crop in a little bit if you need to.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can crop in, zoom in. It's a lot more flexible.
Yeah. So one of the really cool features of the Olympus cameras that I remember when I played with it or shot with it was the weather sealing and dust sealing on those things are next level.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely one of the in my opinion, it's probably one of the toughest camera systems on the market. Just to give you an idea, when I got to the Kalahari, I mean, the equipment takes a beating with the dust. Even this last trip I did, we had a lot of rain, which is it's quite nice in that area. I mean, we were shooting up the windows, the cameras were dripping with mud. With a pro lens and a pro seal body, sometimes you can just take it in the shower with you, give it a rinse off, and then pat it dry, and Bob's your uncle. It's not something most people would ever even dream of doing, but that's sort of exactly how tough and strong these cameras are.
And you've done that. You've taken it in the shower and washed it off.
Yeah, plenty times. Yeah, I wouldn't say this out loud, but I have once or twice, even to get a split level shot in the ocean with like a rock pool. I've actually submerged the camera halfway in the water, taken a pic, quickly taken it out, rinsed it off, dried it up, and it's not recommended, but it can do it.
Yeah, none of these things are normally recommended. If you buy an iPhone, the new ones or the new Samsungs, they all say, well, we're IP67 waterproof and the whole bang shoot. But if you read the fine print, no chlorine, no salt, no this, no, you need to put it in distilled water if you want to have the warranty not be void if you stuff it up.
Yeah, that's why I don't buy phones like that. I use this. It's called an oil phone. That's not a casing. That's the actual phone. It's about 4 times the weight of anything else. It's military grade spec. You can actually drive over it with a car. I have dropped it out the window of a car. I jump in the pool with it.
What phone is that?
Yeah.
The cat one.
I break phones a lot, so I've got to use fuel phone. It actually makes the cat phone look like a toy.
A fuel phone.
Ulefone. Put that there.
Okay. Where do you get that?
There's a company in South Africa called Rugged Gear SA, and they do a whole range of like sort of military spec cell phones, tablets, casings, all of those sort of things. They're absolutely amazing company. They're a great service. They're fast, they're efficient, and they're really well priced. Yeah, always, if ever you're looking to buy something, wait for Father's Day specials. I think I got that thing for about 4,500 Rand. Absolutely stupid.
I've got 4.5 grand for a new phone now.
No, nobody has.
A friend of mine, he swears by the cat phones, and we went camping one evening. We went camping one evening on their farm, and he put his phone down on one of those cloth camp chairs, and the wind came up the night, and the next morning he thought, where the hell is the phone? He was looking everywhere. We phoned it, it was off. He thought maybe the battery ran out. The wind flipped the chair, and it flew from the chair into the fire.
Eish.
So we found it in the fire, all burnt up the next morning, and it was completely shot. He couldn't even save his SIM card.
Quite surprising. The battery didn't pop. Oh.
Yeah, we were all sleeping. We didn't know. We didn't hear anything.
Oh, yeah, jeez. Yeah, there's always some fun camping story. Always. Yeah.
No. Okay, right. Tell me quickly about your print experience before we get into talking about preparing the images.
Okay, well, as you know, when I had my studio in Eisner, we had a printing company. We used a large format Canon IPF 8400, absolutely phenomenal machine. The quality of the print and the color variancy is just incredible. So we offered a professional printing service that started doing sort of high-end prints on high-end media. I mean, obviously we served the local, small canvases, this and that, but we did quite a lot of jobs for photographers, guest houses, architects, or big variety of sort of top-end prints on fine German media. So we got quite well known as being really top-end in terms of quality and sort of supply. As you would know, we've done a fair amount of work for you as well over the years. So basically, yeah, I got really interested in printing, and the digital side of it is probably, to me, you can have the best equipment in the world, but if you don't know how to use it or to get the input right, your results are really shocking. So I spent a lot of time studying and learning the fine arts of printing, and sort of it became a passion of mine, which I really love. And that's basically what we're going to be here to talk about, is how to prepare and look at images, what we look at in terms of to get the best quality out of them at the end of the day.
And tell me quickly, from your experience, what's the biggest mistakes that most photographers make when editing their images? Even if you talk about family photographers or baby guys or wedding guys, what would you say could be the number one issue with them that doesn't give them the best print results?
Okay. All right. Firstly, what I noticed a lot of the time is color. Color is always the biggest issue. You've got a variety of different screens, laptops, Macs, you name it, and the color rendition that you get off your screen is different from one machine to the next, to the next, to the next. And guys boast that their machines or their systems are color calibrated using spiders or whatever they use. At the end of the day, the calibration of the color is the most important, because to get a photograph printed, you want to be able to have it come out what you see on your screen, which is always the biggest problem. So 90% of the time, I always recommend guys to come in and look at the colors, but obviously, when they're far away, like you, for example, it's not so easy. And color is probably the biggest problem. Color with contrast, lightness, darkness. The results are not always what people expect, because they see things differently on their computer. And color calibration is probably the most key and vital aspect, that what you see is what you get. And it's something also that's not really easy to do, because every printer's got a different sort of, let's call it, set of colors that the output gives. One an Epson to a Hewlett-Packard to a Canon, the colors will come out ever so slightly different.
Yeah.
So for me, the color calibration is really, really important. And the only accurate way to actually do it is to calibrate your monitor to the printer that you're using, not to any specific color calibration code or system. And that's the big problem, is the variance between people's computers and screens.
And when you say that, it's also the problem is when let's say I shot a wedding and I deliver it to my clients, and off they go, and they are in a hurry and they run into the little quick 1 hour print lab in the mall, where these guys have often the people working with the images have got absolutely no idea about, they just click print and the size and where it must print. Then there's issues that come in. So I think for most photographers that hope their clients print the stuff, I think that's the biggest issue. So what would you recommend that they do on their side to make it as foolproof as possible?
It's always difficult, like with something like a wedding, because your client's obviously not always in the same area that you are. If it is, like, say, for example, I had a client that lives in this area that got married, I could recommend somewhere to go and get their stuff printed, because I know their quality and their colors are good. So from a photographic perspective, part of your package, you should say, listen, if you do want to get stuff printed, this is what I recommend. say you've got a client from Joburg, you know, you research the guys up there and say to clients, you know, your wedding couple, listen, guys, if you want to get your stuff printed, don't go to these, you know, these little labs that will just do willy-nilly prints. Go to a proper professional lab, get the stuff done properly. So, you know, I suppose the best thing you can do is to recommend the right places in the right areas. It's not always possible, but, you know, try to.
Yeah, and also it comes down to budget as well, what the clients are prepared to pay. If clients want something really nice, and it's also another avenue where photographers can make a little bit of money as a sideline, but normally by the time it gets to that, the client is exhausted his budget and he's just happy to view the stuff on his phone or on his laptop.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, print is sort of a very dying art in a sense. I mean, no one really prints albums anymore. You know, there's the photo book here and there, but albums and prints are sort of going out of fashion, and it's just becoming very expensive. I mean, good quality papers and things are not cheap. So the viewing aspect's very important. I mean, make sure that the viewing portfolio is there, but in terms of the printing, it's definitely something that's sort of falling away a lot. Large format printing is probably more popular than album printing, if you want to call it.
Yeah, I'm going to see if I can get Gilliam from Creative Albums on one of these chats as well. And they do amazing work. They
yeah, definitely
really do print a lot of wedding albums for photographers in the Western Cape and probably in quite a bit of South Africa as well. And I really want to chat to you and stuff like that also. I was going to say something now, but I forgot about it. Anyway, so okay, right. So what are we going to chat about in terms of printing?
All right. Well, basically, you know, let's start from the beginning. When it comes to printing, say you're shooting to print, whether you're a landscape photographer, a wildlife photographer, a wedding photographer, at the end of the day, you are going to eventually get one or two shots that are phenomenal here and there. Or well, as a wedding photographer, hopefully more than one or two. But like if you go out landscape shooting, say you go out to the Cedarburg or wherever you go, you do your night trails, you know, you're photographing with the intention of getting a print out of it at the end of the day. You do online sales. I mean, you know, your images print beautifully. So it's a sort of, you know, it's the goal when you shoot a lot of the time. So when you're shooting, the starting point is what file format to use, obviously. That's always the key difference. If you want the highest quality print, use the best quality file, which always is going to be the raw file from the camera. So let's break it down and look at why a raw file is better than a JPEG file, for example, in terms of print itself. Firstly, a JPEG file will always sit at an 8-bit format, which gives us a very sort of low amount of colors that are available to us. And when I say low, we're talking 16.7 million colors. Right, which it sounds like a lot, but it's not really that high. With a lot of these color printers that we print on nowadays, they use 12 different ink cartridges, so they give us a very high number of colors that are actually available. Using a raw file, for example, a raw file can go anywhere from 8 to sort of 16-bit. Those are sort of our averages. Most of the time we use 16-bit in raw when we print, and the 16-bit raw file will give us, I've actually written it down here because it was a lot, 281 trillion colors available for our color sort of flexibility. So basically what that means is with a raw file, we get a lot more flexibility in the color, a lot more accuracy in the color, a lot less banding or sort of posturization. So your starting point is going to be the file format to choose from the word go. Guys that are just going to shoot in JPEG are going to be able to get great prints, but never on the same level that you'll get from a raw file process. So that's the sort of starting point. Yes.
That is if it goes through the correct process to the correct printer and everything, you'll get a better. If you shoot raw and JPEG, and let's say I send it to you to print, the raw image will look better than a JPEG image.
Exactly. The raw, well, straight out the bat, the raw file will be a bit flat and whatever, needs some sort of local adjustment. But I mean, that's the point, is to be able to know that you take your raw file, use it as 16 bits in your, I mean, most guys are using Lightroom or Photoshop, so in your camera, Adobe Camera Raw or your Lightroom, you know, so that's your sort of starting point, is to make sure that you've got the base file to work with. and how to work with it from there, which is really important. You know, I mean, what the nice thing is with a lot of what we're going to look at just now, if I use Photoshop, I'll generally use the Photoshop Adobe Camera Raw, which gives us the same local adjustments as Lightroom. So understanding what color is and how color is actually affected in the files is also a very important aspect to get, you know, from the word go. And that's why we talk about the raw file so much and why it's so important. Do you think it's important to talk a bit about what bit depth really means in terms of the color file of the sort of color coding of the image?
I think if we just a quick rundown, because a lot of these things that we're going to be chatting about is very technical data that I don't think a lot of, if you've got wedding photographers watching this, really, and again also if the end client is not going to appreciate it that much, they'll be happy with a JPEG print versus a raw print. But if you want to do something really fine art for a big project, then I would recommend, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, definitely. All right, but just to put it in a nutshell, bit depth is technically the grayscale. Hold on, I've got a pen and paper here. I'm just going to basically draw it out so that we get a sort of an understanding quickly on what it means. Let's just make sure I've got this here. All right, if we look at two squares like this, all right, one square is white and one square is completely black. All right, that will be one, so say that's black, completely solid black. That'll be one bit. The moment we double that, then we get two shades of black, so sort of like white going into black, different shading. And every time that doubles, until we get to 16-bit depth, which has 256 levels then of gray to black in a very small sort of band, in basically per pixel in a sense. So the bit depth is the sort of the scaling of gray within each color. So the less scaling of gray, the more posterization and banding we get out of our colors. So the colors sort of give each other a lot more contrast against each other. The gradient is not so smooth. So that's why the higher the bit depth, the higher the quality of the color is, the smoothness. If you were to look at, say, a blue sky going from a nice dark blue with a polarizer to sort of that light blue on the edge of the horizon, it'll be nice and smooth. There won't be any sort of jaggedness between the colors. And that's really important. I mean, if you take an image and you put it on your screen or you print it out A4, you're not really going to notice these sort of things. But the moment, like when I do prints like for you, where they're 2.5, 3 meters in width by 1 meter in height, you know, everything blows up a lot more and you start noticing these small, fine details. So that's where the process of using the right bit depths to get the right colors is very important, especially for large format printing. And large format printing can be really fun and can be really stressful. I remember that last job I did for a guest house in Wilderness. I think we used, what was it, 5 of your images.
Yeah.
It was quite stressful getting them done. It was a bit of a rush job. I think I got the order in on like a Monday and they had to be on the wall by Thursday or something. So that's printing, editing, mounting, you name it. It was quite stressful. But to get those details right on large formats is key as well.
Also, that's the great thing of knowing someone like you, is that where clients can or photographers, let's say they want to print something, they can then send it to you, and then you can prep it. Let's say you're not going to be printing it, the job is in Joburg and they don't want to courier it, or they've got a good guy in Cape Town, or whatever the story is, they can send it to you and you can give it a run through and just see and fix.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'll get the file prepped and ready, sized, make sure all the fine details, everything are absolutely perfect. You know, there might be a few micro adjustments that the guys on the printing side will have to do based on, you know, what sort of printing system they're using and how the color variance looks on their screens. But, you know, I mean, that's a service I do where, you know, in large files, I get them into, you know, sort of absolutely perfect for print, especially for large format work. You know, smaller things like A4s, it's not as important. But there's a lot of aspects to what you look at in photographs for large format that are extremely important. Things like your digital noise, your color noise. I mean, obviously, you know, on screen, when we look at things on social media, we don't pick up the noise level so much. We don't look at things like chromatic aberration so much. Now, this is just a very important aspect for me, is the chromatic aberration that we get on the edge of images. I'm just going to flip to a screen share here to show you basically what I'm talking about. Hold on a second.
I'm just going to put this to the speaker view so it's bigger.
All right. Okay, I'm just going to quickly open up a file here just to show you what I'm talking about. Leopard. I just chose this image randomly last night, just to give you an idea. If we zoom in really tight here, we get a little bit of, can you see the sort of the fringing on the edge here?
Yes.
This little bit of blue here. I mean, it's very minor, or this little bit of fringing here, a little bit of blue purple, which, you know, it looks like absolutely nothing on the image itself, which for most purposes is absolutely fine. But now imagine we go and we print this thing, say 2 meters big. This variance of chromatic aberration over here can sometimes then push to sort of be sometimes even up to 5 millimeters big. So it's small details like this that we overlook. I mean, you know, guys talk about guys that pixel people like this as, you know, being a bit overcompensating and things. But a large format printing, something like that is something that you do have to sort of look at to get rid of, you know, with whatever way is best as possible. Even something like that, I might actually go take a little bit of this color in here and just fill up where the aberration was, look at the noise levels, make sure everything is absolutely fine. Even the slight little blue fringing that we get in these areas here, you know, it's something I will look at in great detail to make sure that the end results are very, you know, appealing. Small details on large prints can ruin images completely.
Yeah, there's also in Lightroom, there's a very quick and easy way to sort out, I would say 95% of that. If you use that color picker, you literally go pick it up and you go to the purple fringe and you click on it, and it will sort that out in 95%.
Yeah, so I mean, things like that are really important. I also picked out a file here just to show you another thing that I you know, a lot of guys do notice the dust spots on the images, like here, for example. Things like this are, you have to look at them in great detail for large format printing, and to actually be able to spot these sort of these dust spots on your images is really important. A lot of the times the screen itself that can't display enough colors that we can actually see. So we sometimes miss some of these dust spots, but the printer itself will actually be able to pick up the slightest variance, and you'll find them on the prints, but you won't even see them on the screen. So I just wanted to quickly show a technique that I use sometimes to basically find the dust spots, so that when I'm removing them, I know that I've got all of them done. And it's quite an easy technique. You just take your image in Photoshop, you duplicate your layer, duplicate layer, and then basically you simply just use a levels tool. Command J and Command L, and basically you almost screw your photograph up, to basically add high contrast.
Oh,
as you can see here in the picture, you can see there's some there. You can actually see where these dust spots are, so you can remove them quite easily. And basically, if you just make sure you work on your lower layer instead of on your top layer with, say, a spot healing tool or something like that, you know, it doesn't look like it's going away, but at least you know where the dust spots are, so that when you actually
just
turn the layer off.
If you go to the top, you can say sample all layers. So you can do it at the top one and it will go through all of them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, there's multiple ways of doing it, but I'll just work on my background layer like that, wherever I see the spots, knowing that my tool will get rid of it quite easily. And we can see here straight away, the results are pretty good.
Okay, that's
quite a noisy picture. Yeah, quite a noisy picture. I chose this as well for a reason. You know, things like this luminance noise and the color noise here in the wings is something that you sort of have to also look at. I mean, even if you look here on the beak of this bird, you're picking up quite a lot of color noise. If this was going to be printed large, this becomes distracting. And color noise is something that you always have to look at. Every single image, whether it be from a Nikon D6 or a Sony full frame camera shot at 100 ISO, you are going to have color noise, whether you like it or not. But the beautiful thing is that in Photoshop or Lightroom, the moment you open any sort of file on your details section here, if it's a raw file, it'll always put it at 25% to start with, so you don't actually notice it. And just a small amount can take out any color noise that you need, which is really great. So small things like this are things that bug me if they're not looked at properly when it comes to large format printing, and someone goes and prints something and there's color noise everywhere, luminance noise, chromatic aberration, or anything like that.
Yeah.
So these are things to me that, yeah.
If you go back to that camera raw window with the noise reduction and the sharpening.
Yeah.
Now I know that you're not a huge fan of Lightroom, but it's exactly the same in Lightroom.
It's exactly the same in Lightroom. Yeah.
So I've got a preset that I run on all my images when I export them for the client, the final images, and I've got my sharpening set to about between 60 and 80. Radius and detail I leave as is, and then the masking is at about 75 or 80. But then on noise reduction, because I've found, for my personal liking, is that images, I get a really good average over all my images if I put my luminance noise to about 10 to 15, around about there, and that gives me a really good result on 95% of my images.
Yeah,
so
you know,
I've saved that as a preset. So when I'm done editing with everything, I simply select all of them and I batch process that preset through the whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, for something like that on weddings and things, you know, a preset can work perfectly fine. But when it comes down to like a large format print, your noise reduction and your sharpening is going to be different on anything, you know, based on how much noise or whatever there is. Like here, for example, I'd actually push my luminance noise up even considerably higher. I mean, way up. I mean, as we can see here, the detail's been lost a fair amount, but that's not too much the end of the world because we can bring that back afterwards. But ultimately, what I would do is to look at getting the sort of the blue sky in the background as smooth as possible. And then the sharpening will be relative to the image itself. I mean, a landscape image, I would use a different sharpening tool than the camera raw, the Lightroom sharpening presets. But something like this, where you can actually mask the area that we want to sharpen just by simply holding down the Alt key, we slide along the mask, and basically it'll show us the area that's going to be sharpened. I mean, if we sharpen this whole area here, for example, just to show you guys, if we put it up there, the masking is not really helping us because we don't want to sharpen this area that we've just, you know, reduced the noise on. Yes. By actually minimalizing the area to focus the sharpening to gives us a nicer result than at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's simple. You just hold down.
Really simple. Yeah, just hold down Alt, and while you're holding down Alt, you move the masking slider along, and basically the only area that's going to be sharpened is the areas that are displayed in white. So as we can see there, we've got a complete white, and as we slide it along, that will change. But just to give you a variance, if we were to use, say, a file like, let's use this. I've got this one here from Andrew Averley, the one you guys were actually talking about the other day. If I were to do the same thing here with the sharpening, it's not going to work as well because, you know, we've got a lot of area where there's white. But actually is not too bad, I must be honest. But landscape images where you've got a lot of focus and things, it's not something I would use the same sharpening techniques for print on there. Yes. I would use different techniques in Photoshop itself, masking specific areas to focus, you know, to bring out whatever points I want to, actually even soften certain areas. It's all dependent on the print itself. Like, for example, an image like this of Andrew's, I would actually even take this bottom area here and this top area, and I'd actually soften it even a bit more for print, just to sort of get that transition to pull the focus onto the sort of the point of interest on the wall.
Now, would you do it with a Gaussian blur or something like that?
Well, there's multiple ways you can do it. You can in Photoshop Camera Raw or the Camera Raw filter, you can just use the gradient filter as well. You can just pull your clarity down a bit, your sharpness down a bit, and your noise reduction up. So these basically are three things that are going to be a blur at the end of the day. So you can just do multiple actions like this, create a new one, maybe from the top. I mean, obviously, we don't want to sit with playing with exposures or anything like that. We want these sort of local adjustments to be sort of neutralized. And we can do multiple actions like this. It's a lot more, I'd say it's a lot more flexible and a lot more controllable as opposed to using the Gaussian blur or your sort of field blur that you've got in your, in your filter menus at the top here. You've got multiple blur options. You've got your iris, tilt, shift, path, spin blur, field blurs, and then multiple other types of blur tools here. So that's probably a little bit more controllable than the other options.
Tell me quickly, where's your texture slider in your camera raw? Have you played with the texture slider? They've added it to.
I haven't actually done the update yet. I'm very lazy when it comes to doing updates. I played on it on a friend's Mac recently, and it's quite nice. I must say it's a nice addition as well. It's kind of, to me, it's very similar in a sense that it's like sort of using the clarity tool on a more localized area.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And the nice thing with Lightroom as well, and it's built into Camera Raw. I'm just not 100% sure where you find it. If you use the brushes and the gradients and the elliptical filters, you can localize it down to your to just the highlights or just the shadows, or and just those little fine details, which has really been helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And when it comes down to print, those fine details are what really matter. If you look at an image on screen, you're never going to completely understand how it's going to look when you print. Just a quick one here. If you actually use the view tool here, you'll have a thing called print size. If you actually click on that, it'll give you the image itself at the size that you printed it. So let's take this image of Andrew's here and just up the size a bit in Photoshop a bit. I'm just going to whack this to 80 centimeters, which is basically an A1.
Yes.
I'm just going to quickly do that. Let that run. So let's go to the view and sort of the print size. That's where we are. So basically, what it's displaying here is sort of what the image quality will look like when this is printed. So it tries to mimic the portion that's on the screen. If you were to have it on a wall, that's what it would look like. So what I always try to do is, when I've got it at print size on my screen, I'll take a step or two back, sort of at the viewing sort of distance that you would in the house or establishment where you're going to have it, and see what the quality of it looks like. And from there, see if I need to sharpen, add more contrast, make it lighter, make it darker, anything like that. And there's so many things that you can't call a constant when it comes to printing. Take an image like this. If it were to be put in a very light room, I would want to have a bit more contrast and put a bit more depth to the image. Whereas if the image was going to go in a very dark room in a house, or say a passageway in a house, you'd want to make it a bit lighter to sort of make it stand out and have more contrast against the wall. So editing a picture for print is not just about making it look great. You're going to make it look great where it's going to be put. So a lot of the times, like the establishment I shot in Wilderness, where we used a lot of your prints, I'll actually photograph the rooms, and then I digitally put the image onto the wall using the perspective tools, and sort of try adjust the image according to what I think it's going to look like in that room. And that's basically where I try sort of visualize the output of the editing process.
Yeah, I also do that for clients, like if they want to do like a wallpaper or just the artwork. I would, and you can even put the, if they've, let's say they're going to be painting a wall like a maroon, red, or gray or whatever, you can get that sample and just a simple photo with your cell phone, just to get to give the client a good idea of what it will look like, the finished product. So
definitely.
Take a photo with your cell phone, take a photo of the color thing, just you selected the pen tool, drop that color in there and put the image on top of that. And
I mean, even those like the color samples, you can actually get their sort of their color coding basically over here that you can use. A lot of them give you that, so you can actually pop it in, like, just draw a mask on the wall, add it in as a gradient with that color, and then you've got a nice accurate sort of way of visualizing the image on the color. It's something I do as well quite often, and I must say it's a really nice service to offer. Not just when you're photographing, when you're printing, it makes guys come back, and that's what we need, especially now with all of this lockdown. We need the return return clients to come back.
And the thing is, even if you do it remotely, like you would if you're in Iceland and the client's in Joburg or whatever, they can take the photo with the cell phone. It's just to give them an idea of what the space will look like with your image or whoever's image on the wall where they want it.
Definitely, yeah.
And there's also if the client comes to you and says, listen, I want to have an A3 print or an A2 print, and they give you a 6-meter wall, then you can say to them, listen, this is what an A2 print on a 6-meter wall is going to look like.
Yeah, exactly.
So you say to them, right, listen, you need to put a 3-meter print on a 6-meter.
Yeah, visualize the size, to scale, and it gives the guys a better idea. And a lot of the time, these big prints can make a huge impact, especially in a lot of these sort of new modern sort of Scandinavian style houses where they've got a lot of light and these massive open walls. Large format printing can really stand out and make sort of a great difference. And visualizing it for the client is what sells the product.
Oh yes, yeah. I've had really big print orders, and I'm pretty sure yourself, just by doing that. Look, it's not a quick process. It's a time-consuming process. So often, if you start working with a client that wants to have a number of prints in his office or his house or wherever, it can take 2 or 3 months from when you start talking to them until the product is finally you finally get the order. It's because
definitely
you need to go in. They need to select what they want. Then you need to go in and get those pictures done, put them digitally on it, send it off to them. They need to have a look at it and get the feel for it. It's a long process, but it's totally worth it.
Yeah, and also just a bit of advice to any guys out there that do have clients that are looking for images and this and that. Don't give too much of a selection. The moment you go to a client with 200 images to choose from for print, you are going to end up in this 3-month process that you're talking about. When we went and did this place in Wilderness recently, I think we went with about 30 images for a selection. I think it was of about 10 or 12 final prints. And it actually narrowed it down and sort of, you go in and you get an idea of what you need for a place in terms of print, what is going to look good, what sort of the client's sort of likings are. You go in with a smaller selection. It focuses then the attention to what needs to be done and the choices that need to be made, and the process can be sped up a lot more from there, from then going into the digital editing side for the printing, getting the printing done on the right media, paper, frames, whatever the case is, to actually getting the product on the wall. So that's just sort of some good advice to have.
Okay, to help people narrow it down, that, or the way I do it is I said to them, listen, what is your idea or your theme that you've got? And then often they would say, oh shit, we've got no idea what we want to have on the wall. We want a landscape. And you say to them, okay, right. If, like, let's say if it's an office building for accountants or lawyers or something like that, say to them, right, okay, right, what's your main type of client? And they say to you, we work with a lot of international clients. You say, right, what do people from international know about South Africa? They know Table Mountain, they know lions, and they know elephants.
Yeah, completely. So I mean, you use things that work.
Yeah, so immediately you bring that you're narrowing down. You say, right, in my portfolio, I've got this in that thing. Or the client, or like let's say if you work with the interior designers and you ask them, right, what is it you need? You said, okay, we've got a color of purple, turquoise, and red. So, right, sunset shots can work with it. So now you see them a selection of sunset images with those color schemes in the sky, or for instance, that can fit in with it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the selection like that is it's probably the most important thing, because at the end of the day, the client's got to live with it for a lot longer than you do. Everything's got to fit and it's got to work. I mean, like, for example, in your office, if I, knowing you, if I were to send you a print that I'd want you to see every day in your office, I'd have to know what you like and what would work. Like, for example, if I sent you a print of a great white shark jumping out the water, I think every day you would hate me a little more. You'll never forgive us for that day, will you? But yeah, I mean, that's basically when, I mean, I'm just looking, I did write a few notes here. Yeah, I mean, that's the basics of what to look at when it comes to printing. Another aspect I was thinking about, which is quite important, is to try not to crop your image until you know the final size of the image. So if you're in Camera Raw, Lightroom, or Photoshop, or whatever, try not to crop your original image, especially for the purpose of canvases, which are quite popular because they're sort of a lot more affordable way of doing things. So you sometimes need extra for your wraparounds, or maybe the client will want the image that you've got maybe in a 16:9 format instead of your sort of original crop, your creative crop. They will want it in a specific shape. So keep your cropping sort of until, I mean, artistically, if it's for your own personal sort of gallery, you go ahead, but you keep the file in its original crop format so that you've got that flexibility at a later stage if needed. That's quite important. I often get a lot of guys that come to me and they want to do a wraparound canvas, say in a 16:9 ratio. I've got nothing to work with. Start doing reflective wraps, or getting creative with your content-aware filling, and it becomes complicated and unnecessary at the end of the day when the original data was available to start with. Yeah. So that to me is just something that I'd recommend guys look at.
Yeah, but that's also where your service can come in, is that you can say to them, okay, right, send me the final image that you show to the client, like what we've done with a shipwreck photo of mine, and everything that I like, and also with the crop, and then send you the raw file, and you can fix it correctly.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it's a service that's not easy to do, to get it right, but it's something I'm quite proud to say that I do offer.
Yeah. Just quickly on another thing. Oh man, it was to do with the also with the cropping. Andrew posted a comment here on the YouTube, and that's threw my mind off. He says, none of those sell, only giraffes sell to people from Europe.
Yeah.
Oh yes. What is the ideal way to scale up an image from your native resolution to print size?
All right, hold on, let me just get the screen share thing on the go quickly again. Where's Photoshop? Basically, the system I use is, okay, obviously you've got to know what your final size is going to be, whether it be a canvas or a paper print that's going in a frame. Like what we did here with Andrew's image, is we just use the image size. It works, I mean, there's quite a few programs out there for upsizing images that have been renowned over the years for getting, sort of the best quality. But Photoshop's always been one step ahead and sort of, kept up with these top programs and just used it as their basic sizing tool. So using the image size in Photoshop is, perfectly acceptable in my opinion. If we're going to go really big, like say the width of this is going to be 3 meters, I wouldn't do it in one bang go. I would maybe go to 1 meter, then to 1.5 meters, then from 1.5 meters to 2 meters, and sort of until I'm about 80% of the way there in terms of sizing, then I'll just double check the sharpness and the detail in the images before I go to the sort of the maximum file size. Because say you go from 2 meters to 2.5 meters, or 2.5 meters to 3 meters, the end result is not going to be that much different, but the file itself will be a lot bigger, which means that say you're going to do any sort of like a camera raw filter adjustment or anything, it can end up taking a lot of time. And there's a good chance that sometimes your Photoshop's going to crash because maybe your computer doesn't have enough RAM or memory or anything like that. And then it's a painful, process of starting from the beginning, unless you've managed to get a nice save on the file or anything like that. So this image sizing does work. Otherwise, if you do need to size an image for, say you've got a specific frame and the image is going to be a specific size, the crop tool itself is also actually not a bad way of doing it. So say we wanted the picture had to be 100 centimeters wide and then say 60 centimeters high. From there, we'll also use our resolution over here, pixels per inch always, and print is always going to be 300 pixels per inch. And a lot of printers, so they can print up to 6,000 dpi, whatever. It means nothing. In Photoshop, you use 300 dpi. Otherwise, when the printer prints it, the size is not going to be the same. So that is also quite important. So using this actually to sort of, let's call it a window to make the image the size that we need it to be, is also another great way of, sort of upsizing an image. And now we also know that the ratio is the right size for the print or the frame or the wall or wherever we are going to put it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, you're there.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you use any plugins? I know that that Genuine Freckles or what is it's on one
General fractals
on one resize also work.
Yeah, basically that's what I was saying is these upsizing programs, basically over the years, Adobe just follows what they're doing, and their image size basically gives you, I mean, I've done large format prints where I've used all of these softwares and used the Photoshop, and there is absolutely no difference between the two. As long as you don't jump everything into one, like they go from a 50 centimeter native size image to a 3 meter in one jump, you'll be absolutely fine. Just if you keep upsizing in Photoshop, you'll get the same results as any of those professional programs.
So now I've upsized my thing from, let's say, a 50 centimeter native raw file. I go to like 80 centimeter. What do I save that as a TIFF file?
Okay, very important. If it's for print, always save as a TIFF file image. When we save as a JPEG, we're going from our 16-bit file with all that color information back down to an 8-bit file. So we're losing half the battle by doing that. So always save as a TIFF file, preferably with 16 bits, so that we've got all that color information. And then you can use the compression on the TIFF file. The saving option, we get what's called the LZW compression, which really is great, because the biggest problem with TIFF files is that they are really large.
Yes.
Some of those files that I used, like for 2.5, 3 meters of your star trail, without any compression, I think they were coming out at about 2.8 gigabytes per image. Yes. Which is a bit stupid. And then with the compression, they were under a gig. So yeah, okay. TIFF file is large and it uses a lot of data, but it is generally the best way to go. If you are looking at a space problem, you can use something that's called a JPEG 2000, which gives you the option of 16-bit color in addition to that. But it's not really a very widely recognized file format. You need a specialized program like Photoshop or whatever to open it. Whereas TIFF file you can open online, you can use any sort of image viewer platform. So TIFF's generally your best way to go.
Okay, just quickly that workflow. So I take the 50 centimeter, I go into image size, take it to 80 centimeter, close it, do whatever I need to do, I save it. So then I close the file in Photoshop, or can I resize? I can upsize it from there straight away.
Yeah, okay, so say here I save it, let's call it, I'll just call it sized 1.
Yeah.
Spelled wrong, whatever. You can use the compression, blah, blah, blah. You go and you save it, you wait for it to get done. From there, you can go straight away and carry on sizing it again. So let's go say, let's just go to 2 meters. You can do that again, let it run, and you can just carry on like that.
Okay.
Yeah, quite.
Save it after each upsize.
I wouldn't say, I wouldn't say it's completely necessary. It's relevant to the computer system that you're using. If you've got a bit of a slower computer system and you're worried about it crashing in, then I definitely would. If you've got, a really nice i7 processor with like 32 gigs of RAM, a nice graphics card, you've got the power at your disposal on your display to sort of upsize without having to worry about things like that. But as you can see here, mine's taking its sweet time, which normally it doesn't, but it's Murphy's Law.
Yeah, but we've got lots of bandwidth and stuff streaming through at the moment.
Yeah, there we go. All right. So, I mean, you can see there. Let's just have a look here. Let's just move you out the way. Let's just have a look here at the sort of the difference in quality. This was sized at 1 meter, and then this is now sized at 2 meters. So the quality's actually remained pretty good here. Obviously, I mean, the image is not the sharpest to start with. Sorry, Andrew, no offense. But the quality itself we haven't really had any sort of loss in quality from upsizing, which is normally the best sign. Often when we upsize things, we'll often get sort of haloing effects on the sort of edges. I've actually got a file here that's a perfect example that I nicked off from my friend Cedric Pirala last night, just to show this. This was a original raw file that was saved as a DNG, but somehow downscaled to 4.6 megapixel. I'm not going to worry about doing any adjustments. I'm just going to open this image up here. Because not everyone's always going to have an image from a, top professional camera that's, got 20 or 50 megapixels or whatever the case is. Maybe a guy's shooting with a sort of an entry level camera, and he wants to try get the results that we're getting. And, great. I mean, guys like that, I completely support you. But what you'll get is, if you look at an image like this, you can see sort of haloing effects. And that's from trunching the file maybe down and then up, or adding too much contrast. Let's just quickly size this bad boy up a bit more. I mean, this is quite small. Let's make this about 80 centimeters, just so that we can get a realistic look at this halo effect. And it's one of these sort of the fine details that I find is very important to look at in an image. Because now, I mean, imagine you printed this, you've got this halo effect all around your edgings, whether it be a landscape. You get a lot of landscapes, especially seascapes on the edges of rocks. Wildlife images, so you do get a lot of this sort of thing, and it's something that on screen, something like that, whether you're looking at it on Facebook, it looks great. But the moment you upscale to print, you start picking up these sort of halos and things, which most people, when they look at it, they go, it's not even worth trying to fix because it's so much work, and how do you actually get rid of it? Just for any of the guys that want to know the easiest way of sort of removing this sort of halo effect, just as a quick way, is to actually use the clone stamp tool. So S, you pick out your clone stamp tool. But the trick is to actually change your mode, which is normally set to normal at the top. Just change it to darken color. Now, where is it there? So basically what happens is when we select our source here, it actually just darkens it a little bit. As you can see there, even though I'm going over the edge of his snoot here, or let's say his horn here, it actually won't affect the darker area, which is always generally the area inside. So you don't have to be completely accurate. So it can make life a lot easier. If you just want a quick fix or whatever, just to sort of pop it through like that, to get rid of as much as you want in an easier, much quicker way. Just to see the variation there very quickly. It's probably the easiest way of getting rid of diffraction lines, haloing effects from too much localized adjustments, like especially your clarity tool will do that. Your contrast tool with too much white and black point adjustments, over sharpening, downsizing, then upsizing, especially these guys that go and pinch images off websites, for example, throw them in Photoshop, upsize them and want to print them. You'll find that you'll get that a lot from the upsizing effect. And I mean, we've all seen guys that, pinch a poster saying, this or that off the web and go and print it and have it in their house. And that's, the quality is just shocking. You can always see it straight away that it's a web image that's been printed, thinking it's high resolution. So that's again, the starting point is always to have the best file possible to start with.
Yeah, the thing is, you will see it, but the general public won't notice it.
No, definitely not. Actually, just I wonder if I can. I'm just going to quickly look for something here. It's an image of my father's that he took many years ago. I don't think I'm going to find it online now. No, unfortunately not. If I can find it, I'll get you to share it on Facebook. It's an image he took with a 4 megapixel camera that we managed to print over 3.5 meters in width. So to illustrate, it's not about the number of megapixels, it's about the quality of the pixels in the first place, so that you don't get artifacts and distractions like that in your images. And it's about the process of not downsizing and then upsizing, always keeping your sort of your native resolution as your standard to upsize for the future. So I mean, 4 megapixel photo at 3.5 meters, and it came out absolutely fantastic.
Oh. Looks like YouTube cut us off there. You just see.
It looked like it. It's saying live at the moment from my side.
Yeah, same with me. Well, we've gone on to 69 minutes on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of editing for print, that's basically, I'm just looking, that's basically the base, what the main things people need to know. From there, it's all about your own creativity and what you want. Everyone's idea of what their image should look like for print is going to be their sort of creative vision, which is great. It's always nice to see, and you can always see on prints. You can sometimes spot a mile away who the photographer is. Yours are particularly quite easy because I know them. But I sometimes walk into, like, it was a couple of years ago, I walked into a guest. I'm like, oh, that's Andrew's pictures, or hey, that's Hogarth's, or you know, you immediately pick up the style of you know, guys' images on prints especially, and it's a nice thing to be able to go around the country and know the guys.
Yes, it looks like it stopped the screen share option, but we can still carry on talking on this side, which is interesting.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I think, well, we over an hour already, so I
yeah,
think,
no, that's good. Eh? I think I'm gonna get an oxtail on the go. It's flipping hot outside. I'm gonna jump in the pool and take it easy for the rest of the day.
I said people can't even go to the beach down there by you.
No, not at all there. And it must really suck for the guys that live like on the beach. You know, they can see it, but you can't go there. That's the worst.
Well,
at least I can't see the beach from where I live.
Well, if you're a surfer or if you've got little kids, that would be the worst.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like putting candy in front of the kids and saying you can't have any. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that was a
all right,
really
cool,
good,
man.
I'm going to save this and put it out as a podcast as well.
So all right, fantastic. Yeah.
The people that listen to that, they probably will have to go into the YouTube video and just go and have a look at what you showed us there. But I definitely learned a thing or two that I've wanted to ask you. So yeah.
No, great stuff, man. And I look forward to having another chat with you sometime.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to do one or two more.
No, we've got the time. I've got nowhere to go to, man. I've got nowhere to go.
Yeah, most people do.
Yeah, I know. So they got no excuse not to watch you.
Well, I'm gonna link all your social profiles. Sorry, that was a call.
No problem. Yeah.
I'm gonna link your social profiles on my Instagram and my Facebook and everything, and then yeah, I can help you.
Sounds good. Awesome, man. Thanks, hey. You have an awesome day.
You too. Right.
All right, bro. Cheers, hey.
Bye.
Bye.
Right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching, and thank you to Warren for sharing all his awesome info on printing large format images, and hopefully we can get him back on again. And yeah, I should be putting this one out soon. All right. Thanks, guys. Chat soon.